He walked into that meeting already convinced he deserved more. Not because he had been promised anything, not because his performance review had hinted at it, but because, in his own words, he was built different. And when he sat down across from his manager, leaned back in his chair, and crossed his arms like he was doing them a favor. Just by being there, he had no idea that the next 10 minutes would quietly destroy the reputation he had spent 2 years building. What he thought would be a confident salary negotiation turned into a textbook salary negotiation mistake. The kind HR teams whisper about long after you've left the building. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. His name was Jason. Loud, charismatic, confident to the point of theatrical. The kind of American employee who believed hard work automatically made you exceptional. He had joined the company during a growth phase, exceeded a few targets early on, and quickly began to see himself as the engine of the department. And in his mind, engines don't ask. Engines demand. For weeks, he had been rehearsing this moment, watching videos about asking for a raise, reading articles about corporate culture shock in global companies, practicing power poses in the mirror. But what he misunderstood was that confidence without self-awareness often looks like workplace arrogance. And arrogance rarely translates well in office politics. The company he worked for wasn't a scrappy startup anymore. It had international leadership, diverse management styles, and a very structured promotion system. Raises weren't granted based on how loudly you believed in yourself. They were granted based on measurable impact, team collaboration, and long-term strategy. But Jason didn't think rules applied to him. When the meeting began, his manager, Claire, calmly asked what he wanted to discuss. Instead of presenting data, results, or future plans, he opened with, "Let's be honest. I'm carrying this team. I think it's time my salary reflected that." The room didn't explode. There was no dramatic music. But something shifted. Claire's pen stopped moving. He mistook her silence for intimidation. He continued, "I've outperformed most people here. Clients ask for me specifically. I bring energy no one else brings. I think a 25% increase is fair." 25%. He didn't realize that number alone would trigger alarms. Not because raises never happened, but because entitlement at work rarely pairs well with inflated percentages and zero documentation. Claire asked a simple question. "Can you walk me through the specific metrics that support a 25% adjustment?" And that's when the first crack appeared. He had numbers, loosely remembered ones, vague references to big accounts and huge deals, but nothing printed. Nothing documented, nothing compared to team averages. His argument wasn't strategic. It was emotional. And in corporate environments, emotion without evidence feels like instability. Instead of adjusting his tone, he doubled down. "I don't think I need to prove my value. It's obvious." That exact sentence. It echoed long after he left. Because in any structured organization, saying you don't need to prove your value is the fastest way to make leadership question it. Claire remained calm. She explained the promotion cycle, the performance review timeline, the expectations for senior roles. She even suggested a development plan that could position him for a raise in 6 months. But Jason heard none of it. All he heard was no. And instead of negotiating, instead of asking what he can improve, he shifted to comparison. "Other companies would pay me more," he said. "I know my worth." It wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was a threat wrapped in ego. Now here's the part most people miss when talking about asking for a raise. It's not just about numbers, it's about trust. When you frame your value as superior to your team, you're not just requesting compensation, you're isolating yourself. Claire asked him calmly, "Are you considering other offers?" He paused. He hadn't actually applied anywhere. The idea of leaving felt inconvenient. He just wanted leverage. So he shrugged and said, "I have options." He didn't realize this one sentence would cost him everything. Because in leadership psychology, when an employee hints at leaving, managers start contingency planning. Not revenge, not punishment, just risk management. If someone signals instability, smart managers reduce dependency. The meeting ended professionally. No argument, no raised voices. Just a polite, "We'll review this during the next cycle." Jason walked out frustrated but confident. He thought he had shown strength. He texted a coworker, "I just demanded what I deserve." But what he didn't see was what happened next. Claire documented the meeting, not negatively, factually. Employee expressed dissatisfaction, requested 25% raise without supporting metrics, indicated potential external options. That note entered his file. Over the next few weeks, subtle shifts began. Key projects he usually led were reassigned for team exposure. A high-visibility client call went to someone else. Leadership meetings he occasionally joined? Suddenly limited capacity. It wasn't punishment. In office politics, when someone signals they may leave, companies protect themselves. Jason interpreted it as disrespect. Instead of reflecting, he grew louder, more defensive, more vocal about being underappreciated. And arrogance that might have once looked like confidence now looked unstable. Coworkers noticed. The same colleagues he once casually criticized in meetings now felt validated. Collaboration became thinner, Slack messages became shorter, invitations fewer. And then came the performance review. Instead of the glowing feedback he expected, he received something different. Strong individual performance, but needs improvement in teamwork, communication tone, and professional maturity. He argued, this is retaliation. But the feedback had timestamps, examples, witness accounts. That's the danger of entitlement at work. It blinds you to how others experience you. His manager wasn't against him. The company wasn't plotting. But culture matters, and in most modern corporate environments, emotional intelligence outweighs ego. The irony? If he had walked in with data, humility, and a collaborative tone, he might have secured at least a pathway to promotion. Instead, he created doubt. A few months later, during restructuring, his role was realigned. Not fired, just repositioned. Less leadership exposure, fewer strategic decisions, more individual tasks. And that's when reality hit. Not dramatically, not explosively, but quietly. He realized that asking for a raise isn't about proving you're special, it's about proving you're valuable within a system. There's a difference. One is ego-driven, the other is strategy-driven. And in corporate culture shock moments like this, many employees learn the hard way that confidence without preparation becomes a salary negotiation mistake that lingers longer than the meeting itself. By the time he finally updated his resume, the market wasn't as eager as he imagined. Recruiters asked about team leadership, about collaboration, about documented achievements. He had stories, but fewer measurable outcomes than he believed. For the first time, he felt replaceable. And maybe that was the real lesson. Because in professional environments, being irreplaceable isn't declared. It's demonstrated consistently, quietly, and strategically. He thought he was the main character. But companies don't run on main characters. They run on systems. And systems don't reward arrogance. They reward alignment. By the end of that year, Jason wasn't fired, he wasn't publicly embarrassed, but he was no longer seen as leadership material. And that silent downgrade hurt more than a direct rejection ever could. The biggest twist? Claire had originally been open to advocating for him, but advocacy requires trust, and trust requires humility. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. A new hire joined the team. Quiet, analytical, collaborative. Within weeks, this person was leading cross-functional meetings Jason used to dominate. Not louder, not flashier, just prepared. Jason watched as this colleague presented clear metrics, thanked teammates publicly, and asked for feedback regularly. And when promotion season came around, that colleague received a raise. Not 25%, but meaningful and deserved. For the first time, Jason scheduled another meeting. Different tone this time. No crossed arms, no demands. He brought printed performance data, client feedback emails, a development plan. He asked, what would it take for me to grow here? That single shift changed everything. Because growth conversations build bridges, demand conversations burn them. He didn't get a raise that day, but he got something more valuable. A roadmap. And slowly, over the next year, he rebuilt what arrogance had nearly erased. Credibility. Sometimes the real promotion isn't in your paycheck. It's in your mindset.